So here is one of the biggest myths about weight loss. The biggest myth about weight loss is that it's about calories or that it's about, eating certain foods or eliminating certain foods. That's huge. It's not about the calories. And here's why. Food is chemical information for your body. So the question becomes, can your body actually use this food? Is it compatible with your body or not? Because if it's not, then it could be 0 calories and still cause inflammation in your body, which translates into weight and pounds. Your scale just goes, and you don't understand why. And this can literally happen overnight. So if you're not eating the correct foods for your unique body, you're going to have a battle with inflammation.
Hi, and welcome to the Entrepreneur Freedom Solutions Show. I'm Eric Asbeck, and today we have a special guest. We have Liz Bull. Now, Liz is a weight loss and life master consultant, and she helps people who are emotional eaters to have a body and a life they love. And she's got a lot to say about that, and she can explain a lot more. So let's jump into it. Hi, Liz. Welcome.
Hey, Eric. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, it is such a treat. I'm glad to have you. And I'm sure our listeners are excited to hear what we have to say here. So let me just kind of start right in and say, well, tell me about this whole thing. Like I won't even. So tell me about this topic, and why is it important?
Well, so many people struggle with weight these days. I'm not even going to go with the COVID-19. I think it's now up to like COVID-25 or something, in terms of problematic eating and emotional eating, eating to self-soothe, eating to make us feel better, eating to, soothe our anxieties and just make us feel better, when the world is going crazy.
There's plenty of opportunity for anxiety to creep in.
Oh my gosh, fear and anxiety are absolutely rampant. And for business owners, entrepreneurs, it's been very, very choppy waters. Some people have done very well in the online environment, just like people did well during the Great Depression. Some people went, and other people made a potload of money. And that's been the case here as well. The past environment, some people have done very well, but I have to say, it's not been without a lot more stress. That's my take on it. There's still been a lot more stress because it's like, yeah, you can do it. You have to, the catchphrase is we pivot. But pivoting can also mean you're turning yourself in circles if you pivot enough.
There's pivoting and then there's spinning in circles.
Exactly.
Pivoting, like going beyond pivoting.
I over pivoted, I over pivoted. So there's a lot of that going on because it has not been an easy environment for many people. It just hasn't been. And I've noticed that for many, many entrepreneurs, there has been an ongoing issue with food for many reasons. Some of it is just a very hectic schedule. Oh my gosh, I don't have time to eat. I work crazy long hours and so on and so forth. And the weight just creeps on. And there's like, oh my gosh, how did I get to be 250 pounds? How in the world did that happen? Well, there are many reasons why, but I hope that gives you some idea about where we're going with this.
I totally get it. And I think it probably resonates with some of the listeners too. So, well, that kind of makes me think, there's on one hand, I would say, what are some common myths that go on, and how would you debunk them? Or another way I could ask it is, slightly different angle would be, what are some mistakes that people make, and what would you do instead? So I don't know if.
Well, That's a great question. So here is one of the biggest myths about weight loss. The biggest myth about weight loss is that it's about calories, or that it's about, eating certain foods or eliminating certain foods. That's huge. It's not about the calories. And here's why. Food is chemical information for your body. So the question becomes, can your body actually use this food? Is it compatible with your body or not? Because if it's not, then it could be 0 calories and still cause inflammation in your body, which translates into weight and pounds. Your scale just goes, and you don't understand why. And this can literally happen overnight. So if you're not eating the correct foods for your unique body, you're going to have a battle with inflammation, an ongoing battle with inflammation, even though the food itself may have very little caloric value. The other thing
and the health impacts of it, yeah.
Oh yeah, all of that, The other thing is that people have no idea, I think for the most part, how important sleep is in maintaining a healthy weight. And entrepreneurs are terrible at this. It's like, oh, I'll just work round the clock. I'll just put in 15-hour days. And it's like it's some badge of honor. And then meanwhile, their health is plummeting. They wonder why, why is my doctor telling me I need to have a cardiology consult? Well, because you're not getting enough sleep. You're not making sleep a priority. The other thing is sleeping at the right time frames. Somewhere between 10 and 6 or 11 and 7 is optimal for most bodies. So
I'll say consistently.
Consistently. So, if you're continually staying up until 3 o'clock in the morning thinking, oh, well, I'll make it up on the other end. No, mes amis, that is not the way it works. It's just not the way it works. And the other
I've come to realize, I think in terms of like as I've had businesses and even when I've been in a corporate job and it's been, energizing and all that, I think, well, I bring great discipline to it and, get things done. And I have my checklist and all that sort of stuff. And what I've realized and even more just as you're speaking, the thing that I have sometimes neglected to do is bring discipline to my sleep hygiene. And it's easy to kind of go, oh, well, it's whatever time. And, you don't allow yourself not just to stop at, I'll just arbitrarily say 10:30, with the idea you're going to get to bed at 11. But if I'm working, if I'm doing stuff that's energetic and for that matter, like overstimulates me.
Yeah.
And I don't have like a routine, it bring the discipline to get away from the screen, like all that sort of stuff that makes sense to do, then it's a myth of discipline because I'm really not bringing discipline to an important area of my life. The same with eating. I mean, yeah, I'm just saying, this is your conversation, but it's like, for me, that's a big aha.
Well, yeah, that is a big one. I could kind of go on and on about that one because sleep is when fat burning actually occurs. Most people think it's at the gym. No. It's when you're sleeping. It's when you're sleeping. That's what's going on. And it's really important. I'm talking about discipline. I'm glad you brought that up, Eric, because it's really important to prepare for sleep. To kind of wind down a bit, because if you're cranked up, if you're energized, and the tendency is to want to keep going, it's going to be you're going to be tossing and turning because you're thinking about
just like preparing for anything in your business, right? I mean, like with this interview, first I prepared and then we got on and we talked a little bit and then we have the interview because that preparation yields a better result.
Exactly.
I kind of lose track of that when it comes to taking care of myself.
And a lot of entrepreneurs do. They do, because we're so I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur. We get so wrapped up in what we're doing and we love it, right? If we didn't love it, we wouldn't be doing it. At least in most cases. I work with people where that was not exactly the case. That's another whole conversation.
Right. I've worked with those folks too. I used to help them
That's another whole conversation.
rescue themselves.
But yeah, well, yeah, it's absolutely, yeah, another conversation. But it's really important to, wind down at a reasonable hour, prepare your bedroom. Some people don't understand the importance of keeping electronics out of the bedroom. And those little teensy tiny lights disturb your sleep. People think, oh, it's fine. Or, oh, I have to have it in case of a call. And I'm like, and you would be doing what at 2 a.m. if somebody called you? Is my question. Really? Could you solve that problem at 2 a.m.? Is there anything that you could not wait until 7 the next morning to do? Really? So I mean, some people get caught up in that. It's like, oh, I have to be available 24/7. And I'm like, no, you don't. Who made that up? Where did that come from? That's nuts. That's absolutely crazy. So no, you don't.
Year to year.
Absolutely do not have to be available to people 24/7. No, 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 no. And I think that's a really important thing to distinguish. And that lack of ability to set really strong boundaries is also a contributor to weight, because it raises your cortisol level, it raises your stress level. And that's a big one for entrepreneurs, is the stress level and being able to manage stress. Because when your cortisol levels are elevated, you're going to gain weight. It's impossible for you to lose weight when your cortisol levels are high.
Yeah.
So you really have to think, and this is again that, hygiene and the discipline to, calm yourself down, prepare for a good night's sleep, take a nice bath, take a salt bath, take an Epsom salt bath, for heaven's sake, with, lavender or something like that.
I know people that do that and they swear by it.
Absolutely. And because it works. The other thing that I advise my clients is to make sure your magnesium levels and your vitamin D3 levels are adequate, because most of us are deficient.
That too, yes.
We're deficient in that. And when you're deficient in those two things, well, vitamin C is the other biggie, quite honestly, because if you're not healthy as an entrepreneur, your business is going to tank. If you are, especially like a lot of solopreneurs I work with, I'm certainly one, kind of, sort of, I have part-time help, I don't do it all my own. Yes, I'm superwoman, but I don't do it all myself. You have to stay healthy, because if you're not healthy, you can't serve your clients properly. You can't, you cannot serve the planet in the highest and best way that you would want to. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Totally. And actually, kind of building on those, there are two themes that came out of that. One is boundaries. Yes. And the other is resourcing each aspect of your business and life sufficiently. So in terms of the boundaries, it really goes beyond the boundaries for sleep and food, nutrition. But I mean, in your business, I mean, if you don't set boundaries, you're saying yes to everything and you're serving no one, because you're like kind of all over the place. And with the resourcing, if you were thinking about having a business and if you had an online business and you didn't have a list manager, if you didn't have, I mean, there's a number of things that you have to have in place that are working in order to make that business work. And the same would be for your physical self and your emotional self, providing the, resourcing it appropriately, like the food that you need, the sleep that you need,
absolutely.
I mean, so I'm just thinking that those are like bigger themes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you kind of need to get a handle on those as core inputs for success in all areas.
Yeah.
That's where my mind is going.
No, that's absolutely true. And it kind of brings me around to, one of the things that I often work with my clients on is, designing an ideal, your ideal average day. Who are you with? What are you doing? Because, if you set yourself up for success, you need a structure.
I'm a big believer in structure sets you free.
Structure sets you free. And a lot of entrepreneurs, and it's an irony, I think, because a lot of entrepreneurs, they get out of structured environment. A lot of them are, corporate renegades or corporate refugees or whatever you want to say, right? It's like, I don't want a 9-to-5 job. I don't want anybody telling me what to do, blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, there's this renegade, bit of a renegade, nobody's going to tell me what to do kind of thing going on in the background, and a resistance to that. And the irony is exactly that. It allows you to get done what you want to get done and feel like you've done enough. Because that's the other thing that happens with entrepreneurs is like, you're at the end of the day and you feel like you haven't done enough. You need to do some more.
Yeah.
Right?
Overworking, overeating, undersleeping.
All of that. Yeah, absolutely right. And to the point of exhaustion, or that constant, that nagging feeling that you're not good enough because you haven't done enough. And so many entrepreneurs are very much have that mixed up of I am what I do. My value is in what I do. And so if I haven't done enough, then obviously I'm not good enough.
And that's a treadmill you can't. It just keeps getting fat. It keeps speeding up until you fall off. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's part of my work, because a lot of that is driven by subconscious beliefs, things that they don't even know you have them, but that's what perpetuates the treadmill thing, and keeping going and going and going and going and going, and and sacrificing the Saturdays with your kids, and sacrificing date nights, and sacrificing to the point where your marriage breaks down, or your kids, you don't even know your kids anymore, right? Yes. So the dog is like, who?
Well, that actually kind of brings me to maybe a way to illustrate this is, is there someone that comes to mind that you've coached or mentored, and like what's the transformation that they experienced?
Yeah, absolutely. One of my clients, nice guy, heck of a nice guy, had built a he was a dentist. He still is a dentist, but he had built a huge practice, huge practice. And then he had sold that off, and then had gone into coaching. And he had this thing going of, can't ever be enough, do enough. Worked crazy hours in both the businesses, crazy hours. And as it turned out, it was rooted in this family history of hard work. Like there was only hard work. And if it wasn't hard, well, then obviously it wasn't work. It
somehow wasn't worthy if it wasn't hard.
Yeah, it wasn't valuable, and wasn't worthy of comment or approval or praise, essentially. And if it wasn't hard, then, well, obviously you don't belong in this family. And it was also tied to the money that was coming from it, because he had been very, very successful. But he had come from an immigrant family, and they had formed almost like their own enclave of farms in, I think it was Nebraska, someplace like that, right? But I think they're Middle Eastern or Lithuanian or something like that, right? So the thing is that they were like a lot of, rural America. They came from nothing, and hard scrapple kind of people, and just, hard work was just what they knew, and there was nothing else on the horizon. And their view of people who had wealth was not a positive one. If people, in their view, they called this particular part of town Snob Hill. Where the wealthy people lived was Snob Hill, right? So there was no perk for being wealthy, because if you were wealthy, you were going to be a snob. And if you were a snob, you were not welcome in their family. So that was a real conundrum for him. It's like, and unfortunately he had
driven to be successful and wanting to be belonging and doing things that seemed to be alienating him from
and
the
they
people he cared about the most.
yeah, and they totally were, because I mean he loved his family, and unfortunately he had a cousin. His cousin was not my client, but when we were discussing his cousin who became a veterinarian, guess what? Said cousin became very, very wealthy and became very, very alienated from the family. It was just clear he wasn't really welcome anymore. Right? So there was this loss. So it's like he's working harder and harder and harder because he wants the financial success. He wants the stuff that, money can buy.
And capable of making that happen.
And he was totally capable of making it happen, totally capable of that. And just felt enormously guilty about it, very conflicted over it.
Yeah, I understand.
We cleared all that.
So what happened?
What
happened to this poor soul?
We cleared all that. Well, number one is he stopped driving himself so freaking hard, because there was this, part of it too was people get these kind of archetypes in their minds. What I run across very often with my clients is Superman or Superwoman or Mighty Mouse, here I am to save the day, and there's like they just force themselves into these heroic roles when it doesn't have to be that hard. It really doesn't. I think this fellow had like a gladiator, archetype. It was like everything had to be a fight, everything had to be difficult, and it had to be a struggle, and so on. And so, you have to say to yourself, well, what if it didn't? What if it didn't? What if it could be easy? Could you still be valuable and not have to work so hard?
So what happened with him?
He stopped working so hard. He literally, the struggle stopped. The struggle stopped, and it became, he started sleeping better. His relationship with his wife improved. The relationship with his kid improved. He got a dog. Right?
That's a big deal kind of. Those are all big deal things. Yeah.
They are in a crazy kind of way, because having the dog meant that he could let himself play rather than work all the time, or have everything to be hard all the time. Yeah. That's really what it came down to. He could finally be at peace that what he had gotten done for the day was enough. It was enough.
That's actually really huge.
It is to be able to close the computer down and go, okay, I'm done for the day. Done enough. Tomorrow is another day. Tomorrow is another day.
Let myself rest and restore, and tomorrow it'll still be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's okay.
And it's okay. And that's an important thing. That's an important thing. Personally, I think, talking about the routine, I think it's important to have, we talked about plans and routines, and I start my day with gratitude. I start my day with 3 things I'm grateful for. And then I look at, what are the 3 most important things that I'm going to get done today. I put those in, and I schedule. That's the other thing is, I notice people they go, oh, I have this to-do list, and they've got this list that's like 50 things on it. It's like, no, don't, no.
Pick 1, pick 2.
Exactly.
Pick 3, and we're going to stop max 3.
Well, yeah. But I find that what people do is they'll make the list, but then they don't time block it. They don't allocate a time for it. And if you don't have a time allocated for it, typically it does not happen.
Like a place in a space in the time slot in your daily calendar.
Absolutely.
I totally agree.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, I find people, and this adds to the stress, is people, kid themselves about how long it takes to do certain things. If it takes you a half an hour to get from A to B, for heaven's sake, schedule a half an hour, maybe even 40 minutes, because stuff happens, right? Don't schedule
I
15.
schedule appointments, then I put the drive time on my calendar.
Exactly right.
Yep.
Exactly right, Eric. That's so important because as far as I know, I mean, Zoom has been a wonderful thing, but other than that, we do not teletransport. We don't. That's still,
I've been working on that. I haven't solved
that's
it yet.
that's still sci-fi stuff. It's not. We don't get beamed anywhere.
Right.
We don't. We absolutely don't. So it's so important to do that. And I think the other thing is, aside from the time blocking and taking in account all of the things around stuff, it might be, you might have a call that goes from 10 till 10:30, but how about the time that it takes you to prepare for the call? What are the papers that you need to get out, or whatever? What files do you need to have in front of you? And then it's putting, you need a little
And then
buffer.
afterwards, are there follow-up actions that you want to allow yourself some time to take? I mean, you're saying, hey, we had this great call. I promised you I'd send you X, Y, Z, or I'd call this, like whatever.
Exactly.
Oh man, well, there's another call, and then one flows to the next, and all of a sudden at the end of the day, you've got this long to-do list of stuff that you promised people or that you promised yourself that you would do as a result of all the things that happened, and none of that got taken care of.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And these are all stressors. These are all stressors. When you end up with a longer list at the end of the day than you had at the beginning of the day, your blood pressure rises, your cortisol levels rise, and then you're not going to sleep well for sure. When you're in that stressed out state, you're not going to sleep well. So it becomes a downward spiral. So that's really, really important. So I end the day with gratitude. The other thing I find is important for entrepreneurs is celebration. We don't celebrate. We don't acknowledge ourselves enough. We don't. And it's very difficult to stay motivated when you don't have those pats on the back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, you can't, a lot of people don't get entrepreneurs. Especially if you came from the corporate environment, all your friends were corporate people. They don't get entrepreneur. They don't. So it becomes kind of isolating to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So it's very important to have your own, system for acknowledging what you got done today. Yeah. So I make sure I do that. I was like, the things that I, felt really good about today.
Oh, that's a great tip.
I pick 3 of them and I write them down. And then I look at, well, what did I learn today? And I can also look at what didn't go so well today. Sometimes it's the good stuff. Sometimes it's like, I should have done that a little different, or I won't do that again, right? And then I end the day with 3 gratitudes as well. So that is the way my day flows to manage my own stress as an entrepreneur.
That's a wonderful envelope to put yourself in.
Yeah, it works.
It's sort of a hug.
Well, yeah.
From the beginning and the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing, talking about, because we started out this whole thing about, the COVID-19 and stress and all that. I'll show you a really great trick for soothing yourself in the moment. Mm-hmm. And it could be, maybe you had a crap phone call with somebody, maybe you're feeling like you're going to
whatever, something comes up.
Something comes
up. What do I do now?
What do you do now? I'll tell you what you do now. You literally give yourself a hug and just rub your upper arms and you go all the way up to your neck. You'd be surprised how great that feels.
That's surprising.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
But it calms your system down.
That's amazing how the impact that just in that moment had.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts. So I use that a fair amount, actually. I would say probably at least once a week. I find myself doing that. Just when you're feeling like, oh, am I going to get it all done? Oh my God, I've got another call. Oh my gosh, somebody else called me about this. There's another opportunity. Because as an entrepreneur, very often, once you start to be known, people, there's stuff coming in over the transom. They want you to do this.
There's always stuff.
there's always stuff, and sometimes it can be very overwhelming,
Yeah.
very overwhelming, and you need that, like, breathe. And that's the other thing that I often teach my clients, is just how to breathe, because when you get in that state, your breathing becomes very shallow and you're literally not getting enough of oxygen. If you're
Right.
not getting enough of oxygen, your brain does not function well. It does
Well,
not.
if you just imagine if you were held underwater, you'd reach a point where your body would start to really stress out. Like
Absolutely.
every emergency klaxon would be ringing, and all that, the red lights would be flashing
Yeah.
because because you weren't getting the oxygen. Now it's a horrible thought, but I
No,
kind of imagine that if my breathing is shallow, I'm starting to trigger those emergency warning signals, but I don't
and
realize it.
that's absolutely right. That's
And
absolutely
then
right.
I attribute that to stuff that's other stuff
Right.
besides that simple thing that, oh, I'm just not breathing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, once the amygdala, that's the part of the brain that gets activated, that's the fight, flight, freeze thing. Once that gets activated, you're not making great decisions. You're not.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
can't.
You're
You're
making them out of stress and anxiety,
you're physiologically
not really
incapable.
like stepping back and thinking what's what's in my and everyone else's best interest to be doing right now. It's
Yeah,
more like
exactly.
I
Exactly.
need to escape this.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. It's just,
I need to survive. What do I need to do?
yeah, well, the problem is we don't get past the what they need to survive part,
Right, right.
So
That's
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 why
what
you
I
can kind
call
of
it.
like
Yeah, yeah.
stop it and breathe. The
Breathe.
other thing that I teach people to do in those moments of overwhelm, because I mean, as an entrepreneur, you have them. You just do. There's something that's called the occipital hold. You can literally just put your hand here, right across your forehead, put this part down by your eyebrows. There you go. And then put the other hand on the occiput, that's the curved part,
Wow, that's amazing.
and then just kind of make a panini out of your head. You're
Mhm.
pressing backwards on this hand, pressing backwards, and then just breathe. Just breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth like you're blowing out through a straw.
That's really remarkable. Such a simple thing.
It's a simple thing, but not a lot of people know about it.
Yeah.
But that's something that you can absolutely do to calm your system down so that you can start to think straight again.
Well, I was going to ask you what's like one thing you wish you'd known, or a golden nugget or something. So yeah, I think you've given us a number of golden nuggets. But well, let me just ask, is there something you wish you'd known when you started out, like a piece of, a big lesson that you've learned that you're like, oh man, I wish I knew that.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, this is something that I've only discovered recently, and that's something called human design. I think if more people, a lot of people I find are, trying to live their lives as Volkswagens when they're really designed as Maseratis, or vice versa. They're not living their soul purpose, and they're not living their human design. And I wish that I had been aware that that existed back in the day, because I think a lot of kids grow up trying to live up to parental expectations, one way or the other.
Or some peer that they admire,
Or
or some celebrity or something, like somewhere out there.
somewhere out there, but not internal.
I need to, like that. If I can only craft myself to be like that person.
Exactly right.
If I get there, then everything's going to be okay.
Exactly.
You're violating your own. I'm hearing what you're saying is you're violating your own design. That's
Exactly
not
right.
honoring who you
Yeah.
are.
You're not honoring who you are. You're not honoring your innermost, deepest desires. And that's one of the things that I do work with my clients on, is finding out, your human design, but also, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want?
Right.
Not, I mean, a lot of people find themselves wanting from a position of what do I think I can have?
Mm, I like
What am I
putting
allowed to, what am
limits,
I,
caps on things.
yeah, what am I allowed to have? What will mom and dad approve of?
Mhm.
What can I have without getting shamed, blamed, or criticized or made wrong?
Yeah, I took a self-development class one time, and the coach said, one of my biggest challenges is increasing my capacity to want.
Yeah,
Capacity to
yeah,
want.
yeah, yeah. Well, very often, I mean, I think there's a huge group of people, a lot of them baby boomers, who were children of the Depression,
Mhm.
right? Where it was like, if you, no, don't bother to dream. It's not happening.
Mhm.
What are you, crazy? That's not,
Scarcity, limited resources.
yeah,
Um,
very much so. Very much so.
that goes for money. It goes for work fulfillment. It goes for relationships.
Yeah,
It goes for, I mean, it goes even like allow like your capacity to play and
absolutely.
to enjoy your the movement of your body.
Yeah, absolutely. All of that, Eric, all of that. That capacity was extinguished.
Or you
Kind of like
sort
the
of
virus.
train you've taken on mindset,
Well,
internalized a mindset that around that is artificial.
true, true. And a lot of it, quite honestly, this is a lot of the work that I do with epigenetic patterns. When there has been that level of trauma, it comes through, and it comes through for some people say 7 generations. I have found even further back. This can come right on down, and there is this sense of resignation and despair about life in general. I mean, it's like, who's that? Eeyore. Eeyore, like,
Yep.
I mean, they're like there's like an internal Eeyore, like, life's, kind of like life sucks and then you
There was
die.
some cartoon many years
That's all there
ago,
is.
like there's a dog patch and something. There's this character, Joe Mixpicklix or something like that. But he walked around, and over him and only him was this cloud, and it was raining, like
Yeah,
wherever he went. And it was only him,
yeah,
but
yeah,
he brought it with him everywhere he went. There's that
absolutely.
old joke for some people, why don't they have fun on vacation? Because they're there.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. Because fun is just it's not part of their consciousness or vocabulary. They wouldn't know what fun was if it hit them over the head, because it's just not part of their experience.
They haven't given themselves permission to experience it.
Well, they don't think it exists.
Mm.
They
Yeah.
don't think it exists. If you grow up in a family that's nothing but work, 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 I'll tell you, Price, and this is somebody said that about my family, and I'll tell you, it's been an adventure to undo this. But a friend of mine, he once commented, he says, "Oh, what does the Bull family do for fun?" It was a rhetorical question. He says, "They work some more," and it was true.
Yeah.
It was true. It was not really a part of our family experience. It was work, work, and more work, which is typical in rural families, where there's a farm.
Mhm.
Usually it's work, work, and work some more.
Yep.
If
And a
there's,
lot of entrepreneurs do that too.
they do,
But
they do.
but here's I'm mindful now of the attention span of our audience. So because we could talk for a long time further. However,
We could.
let me just kind of bring us toward closing by saying, is there one question you wish I'd asked, and what would you answer?
Eric, I think we're good.
I think we've covered an
I think
incredible
we've
amount of
covered
time.
everything we can in the limited time that we've allowed ourselves.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So, well, so how can people reach you? I mean, and is there anything you'd like to offer to folks?
Absolutely. So I'm very easy to get a hold of. Just you can email me, Liz, that's Liz, Z if you're Canadian, at Liz Bull, that's Bull, just like the animal.com. And I actually do have a gift to offer. It's about managing your energy, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you need to speak. Just go to www.lizbull.com/gift. That's GIFT. So that's LIZBULL.com/gift, GIFT.
That is fantastic. And I just imagine there are going to be a number of folks that are going to be going to grab that gift and would like to talk with you further. So this is super great. What a wonderful conversation.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric. It's been a pleasure.
Great. Okay, take care, Liz.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.